what he told me to tell them. So they can turn on the tape. Alrighty, well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our little seminar here, Truth in Advertising. First off, I'd like to introduce myself and my co-helpers here. My name is Ken Oburn, and I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. I started Square Dance Calling in 1952. I do mainly classes and clubs and one-night stands. I have one club I've had for 28 years now. I have 8 beginner classes going. I do a lot of work with the community colleges. Most of these are college work, daytime classes, not all night. I teach 1st through 6th grade at a Catholic school. And I have 2 senior groups starting, and I got 2 more starting as soon as I get back from Easter vacation. So I published a little magazine, which you all have a copy of, called Square Dance News, and it's our 25th anniversary. We've been publishing this little thing. So we have quite a bit of background in square dancing, and right now we'd like to introduce our other 2 panelists here. We have Betsy Gotta from New Jersey. And if Betsy would get up here and tell you a little bit about herself.
Okay. I started calling when I was 14, and I am currently teaching 3 sets of lessons, which involve 5 different clubs, because clubs in our area are co-sponsoring lessons in order to cut costs. In addition to that, I work with a college-age group, a senior citizens group, and I work during the daytime.
Thank you, Betsy. And next we have Jim Lee from Canada.
Good afternoon. I've been calling for about 15 years, and I'm teaching, we do have a basic class in Hamilton, Ontario, and I plus teaching to the high schools and universities and colleges in square dancing. And I think this activity this afternoon about talking the truth of advertising we'll try to cover a lot of parts that we can, and we'll do the best we can for you in our advertising.
All right, our format is we've just all kind of jotted down little things that we thought of, and what I'm going to do is my little bit, and then Betsy will do hers, and then Jim will do his, and then we will start taking questions from the floor. Big John K. asked me to be the moderator for this little session here, and that's all he told me. He says, your thing is truth in advertising. And he said if we can mainly talk about honesty in advertising, especially new recruits, maybe the class time, the length, the contents of the class, after class what, and public relationship and stuff like that. And he said he would prefer that we didn't get into the levels of the dance, but if we did, that was all right also. All right, so I researched it down at the public library, where I usually go when I want to get information, and come up with some books on general advertising, and many of them apply to what we do here in square dancing. I forgot to write down what books they were, but just take me for my word that these things are the way they come out of the book. They always exaggerate in square dancing, not in square dancing, but exaggerate in advertising. And this one fellow had a little thing here I thought was very, very pertinent. It says, when you say there might be a slight exaggeration in advertising, it's like saying a girl is slightly pregnant, which is very true, I think. You know, you can't exaggerate a little bit. If you exaggerate, you're exaggerating the whole bit. They have half-truths, and half-truths are often falsifications of the total fact, by reporting only those facts that praise the product, which could be square dancing, and ignoring the reality that includes negative facts, which we do quite often in our advertising. The overwhelming aim of advertising is to make a profit. That's why people advertise, because they want to make a profit. We advertise because we want to get people out, which is making a profit in a sense. To serve the public best becomes a secondary consideration and is confined within the limits of the profit motivation. A lie that helps build profits is considered a permissible lie, and this we have a lot of in all kinds of advertising, which I'm sure you're sure of. Permissible lies. You tell a little white lie, and it's permissible if it's done in the right sense. A substantial amount of advertising is based on the concept of the permissible lie. This fakery, though, through saturation and repetition, undermines the attitudes and ethics of the adult, the child, and the family, which is very true. And he went on to this, one fellow said, I am convinced that the immoral concept of the permissible lie is not necessary to achieve the improved sales and profits of the advertised demands. It means you don't have to lie to get your point across. Truth is the highest thing that a man may keep. And the main one is advertising is aimed at one single dominating goal, to sell. That's why you advertise, because you're trying to sell something. If we're trying to sell square dancing, we've got to advertise and make it worthwhile for the people we're advertising to. To sell or increase sales, most anything goes. including the half-truth. And the half-truth that goes is generally the worst half. Okay, the part you don't tell them is the worst part of advertising. When we advertise a beginner's class, we don't tell them, hey, boy, we want 42 weeks of your time. We say, hey, come on out, you can have a lot of fun. We're going to teach you how to be a square dancer, but we don't tell them the bad facts of it. Maybe we shouldn't. I don't. These are the questions we're going to get into later on. We're just trying to give you food for thought. One man says, our ads don't lie. They just tell part of the truth, which is another half-truth. We just tell the part we want to tell. We don't tell them the whole truth. Implying that something will happen is a half-truth when you don't state the time factor, which is very true. Tell people you're going to have fun being a square dancer, that's true. But you're not going to have fun being a square dancer until you learn how to square dance. At least that's my opinion. Okay, next we're going to take Betsy up here, and that was quick, wasn't it? Your turn.
Well, I'll start off with saying that I disagree with Ken on the fact that you don't have fun becoming a square dancer until you become a square dancer. I think everybody can have fun all the way through lessons, even in spite of the frustrations. I address things slightly differently. If you read the questionnaire or look over the questionnaire I passed out, I took these around to the 3 classes I was teaching here, and to 2 classes from my friends. I decided to find out what people were thinking who were currently in lessons, and whether or not they felt they had been cheated by what they had heard as compared to what they found. Most of the answers, and I did not tally them, but there's the numbers. There were, I would guess close on 75 answers here. Most of them said that they were not disappointed with what they had experienced as compared to what they had heard. Now here's an answer. It says, in question 2B, it says, question 2 is, how has square dancing lived up to what you expected based on what you had heard from where you originally found out about square dancing or anybody else? And question B of that is, what has been better? This person said, more calls than I had expected. They found that better. And question 3 says, how could this disappointment be changed by better advertising? This person has crossed out disappointment, put surprise, and said, yes, it could be changed, but it might scare people away. So they're not sure. That person right there says maybe we should tell the half-truth, because they had fun even after they found out it was more complicated than they expected. Then I went around to try and find out how can we give dancers or non-dancers a complete picture of what we experience. And when you can go out and say it's fun, but somebody will tell you that skiing's fun, and somebody else will tell you that tennis is fun, and they're convinced of that, or they wouldn't be telling you that. So what you want to present is not just the fact that it's fun, because obviously we think it's fun or we wouldn't be involved in it, but why is it fun? Why do you have a good time? Why would you enjoy it? What are you getting out of it? Most of the people who answered this question said that you cannot tell people about it. You must get them to a dance. A demonstration, some people felt a demonstration would help, but they said people have to participate in a beginner dance or experience some of the fun in easy level square dancing before they could really understand what's going on. I do have one answer that says you could have a film with questions and answers to present the idea. And of course, if you have somebody smiling through their dancing on a film, it's a good thing. I think the TV show, the Donahue show, what was it, a year ago or so? I think that was excellent publicity because those people were square dancing and enjoying it, and you could see that. Demonstrations to people who may be interested was another answer. Bring new dancers to an open house. In northern New Jersey, I don't know how other groups do it, but in northern New Jersey, almost every club sponsors a dance sometime in the fall, which is either free or a nominal fee. And it's a recruiting dance, no matter what they call it. Some people call it a jamboree, a barn dance, one-night stand, beginner party, whatever they call it, it's a recruiting dance. And that's where you get the people to come and try and experience it. And then you tell them about lessons. You want to continue this fun? Did you have fun tonight? Want to learn a little more? Sometimes you can have the demonstration by the club people after the people have experienced a little dancing so they know that they can learn some. And you say, now look, this is what you learn later on, and see how intricate it is, but listen, here's a do-si-do, and you just learned that now. So you take it one step at a time, and it will take a while, but you can come out. So you can tell them the truth, but tell them that it is fun even while they're learning. Again, and over lunch we were discussing class-level dances. In our area, and this is not advertising, but it has to do with having fun. In our area we have class-level dances which are for the people in classes, and they are progressive. It's not just a halfway dance, but there's several which progress with the classes sponsored by different clubs. And if you tell them that they can dance, even before they can, they can go out to a dance and go to a party, even before they graduate, that's a selling point. It's the same as being in the club, although they have not yet graduated from lessons. Most of the people, I find this encouraging. Question number 5 said, if you had heard in advertising what you know about square dancing now, would you have tried it? I did not get any no's. I got a couple of maybes. I got some people who didn't answer it, but I got no no's. Now, of course, I did not get these to anyone who started lessons in September and is not currently dancing. I would like to see what their answers would have been to that. But from the people who are still dancing and still in lessons, not one of them said no. My theory is that you tell them about what it is and how it is, and tell them that it seems like a long commitment, but we did it and we're having fun. The clubs in our area will tell people that there's a 30, we usually do not go 41 weeks. We manage somewhere between 26 and 30 depending on the club. And they will tell them that there's, it's going to go until May. But they do not take payment for the entire set of lessons. You pay either in thirds or in quarters. And that way, if someone wants to drop out, they do not lose a lot of money. That may not have to do with truth in advertising, but at least it doesn't leave someone with the feeling that they were cheated because they didn't like it. They can drop out, say, at the end of the quarter, and they've had a good time maybe dancing for that quarter, but they don't want to continue. Lastly, I brought an example of a description which is going to appear in an adult education booklet, which I think says a lot of how it could be said in how to introduce square dancing. This is for an adult school. The course title is Square Dancing for Beginners. It says, Basic Instruction in Modern Western-Style Dancing. No previous experience required. Since each lesson is based on material presented in earlier sessions, regular attendance is of utmost importance. The full course runs for 2 terms of 10 weeks each, supplemented by several extra classes between terms and a workshop after the second term. They do tell you that it's a long commitment. Successful completion of this course qualifies dancers to participate in club level, and they have that in quotes, square dance activities throughout the country. Since this is a couple activity, single dancers are urged to find partners before signing up. How many of us have had a problem with somebody coming in and just somehow thinking that a partner was going to magically appear because we said it was open to both couples and singles? This does tell them that it's a couple activity. It lays it on the line. It does not say that a single cannot come, but it does tell them that there may be a little problem. And then it says who it's sponsored by. Now, I think that that is a good example of how you can give upfront advertising and give a complete picture of what the people are going to expect. I think the more we do that, the better off we are.
Thank you, Betsy. You've done your homework. Good. Next we have Jim Lee.
First of all, when we advertise square dancing, we look at the part where we're going out to malls or watch for television or newspaper, we found out in our area that some of the clubs will not combine together and make one great big advertising in, say, in a newspaper. They want to do like for their own little clubs, not for all the clubs in the area. We get many phone calls of people saying, well, gee, I like to learn square dancing. Where can we go? Instead of saying, well, gee, we dance here this night, we will say, well, whereabouts do you live? And we will send you the club closest to you instead of having traveling all the way through, like, say, in a city. And it makes it much easier for them because we find out maybe later on in the future, they will find out, well, gee, you sent us all the way to your club and there's a club around the corner. That really wasn't fair in true advertising in that direction. I found out when Betsy was mentioning about the Donahue program, there was one person on there about saying, gee, when I learned square dancing, my closet is full of square dancing clothes, dresses, and that. We tell our beginners right at the beginning that we do not expect them to buy square dancing outfits right off the bat. We hope they would at least have one outfit, at least by Christmas time or graduation. And so we're not scaring them off by saying you got to spend all this money in costumes and outfits. Advertising, we feel that with malls, it really doesn't help out. We didn't get many dancers from a mall demonstration. The only thing about doing a demonstration that way, it puts the square dancing in the public eye, and people know what square dancing is about. The majority of the dancers coming into class, they say, well, my friend or a neighbor, said, come on out and try square dancing. And with it being the first few weeks open free, they like this free idea. But when we advertise our square dancing, saying, now you're not learning like class. Square dancing is a party for non-dancers given by a square dance club. So it's sort of a party activity. Later on, we'll explain to the ladies about the costumes and what to wear, and same thing with the gentlemen. I enjoy going to the high schools, teaching grade 11, grade 12 students into the college about square dancing. Now, some will get the way about the old-time dancing, so when I first walk in, I'll put on some of the modern music that they are familiar with. And so we're not promoting old-time square dancing, and the students' reactions go over very, very well with this. After within an hour, we count about 400 students in the gym square dancing. And if I go into a school, they'll say, okay, now you can't do this and you can't do that. They're going to tune me right out completely. So we're at a school for the short time that we are there. I let them, hoot and holler, scream and yell, and let them have a real fun time with it. But then, when we get them involved in our regular clubs, then we'll explain about styling and the activity itself. And the only problem, again, we have with students coming in is the same thing when they get a boyfriend, girlfriend type idea. But halfway through the season, then they split up. We got singles. And then we do have a few problems there. We would like some of your comments, how you advertise in your areas. Like we say, newspapers, it does help, but then sometimes they can be very expensive. How long do you advertise? Is there any ideas that you folks have that would like to help us out in advertising, square dancing? Anything special? Question, yep.
The best result we ever had was the second class we ever taught. Now, this is 20 years ago, but I taught one class of 10 couples and made a club. The next season, they went out all dressed in their attire and knocked down doors. And they come in with 9 squares of dancers. I know you just can't always do this, but this was the best advertising we ever did, and we still got a lot of those dancers left.
If you could talk, you'd have to come up and talk. Okay. We appreciate, I wish we would have got you on the tape up here on that, because we don't have any floor mics out there, and would you come back up here and put that on the tape for us, and give us your name. Anybody wants to talk, come on up here. You're not all bashful. Just give us your name, where you're from, and then state whatever you'd like to state. Because we're now into our question and answer period. And if we can answer any of your questions, great. If we can't, tough. Be my guest, sir.
Thank you. I'm Wendell Law from Michigan, and our second class we ever taught was gained by our first class dressing up in their attire and going around knocking on doors. And our first class was 10 couples, and our second class was 9 squares, which was the best class we ever had in 20 years.
Did they use the same method again?
Repeat the question.
No, they want to know if they ever used this same method again, and they never have.
typical salesman's trick. If something works, don't use it anymore. Find something new. I'm a salesman, as you know now. One thought of mine, as Betsy was going over this a little bit, I think this is a fantastic thing she put up here, and I think it would be a great idea if CallerLab would come up with some general format like this and have every CallerLab member that has a beginner's class make one of these out and give it to his people at a certain specific time, compiling all the answers later on, and then making a presentation. There's Big John K. Hello, John. Welcome aboard. What words of wisdom do you have for us, sir? Any? None. Okay. But I think this is this is just a fantastic thing Betsy done here. And I would like to see this, from different areas, because every area, as far as I'm concerned, is different. What Jim does up in Canada is altogether different than I do down here in Campbell, California, probably altogether different than Betsy does over in New Jersey. So, from now, anything from the floor? Any questions? Anybody got any ideas, comments? Yes, sir. Come on up here.
Sit closer.
Yes, sit closer if you want to talk. Well, that's all right. Very good. That's what we're here for, is to exchange ideas.
Wendell again from Michigan. A friend of mine, Jack Cook, decided to put a flyer in I think it was what was being sent out by the schools to everybody in the whole area. So Jack approached these people and said, if I put a flyer in about square dancing, how many would I need? And they said 43,000. And Jack thought about it a little bit. Finally, he had 43,000 flyers printed. It cost him $200 and some, but he wound up with 10 squares of class. And that's opposed to what we usually have, about 3 squares. So it paid off.
Yes, sir. If you come up front here, we will get your comments. Got to fill in while he's walking up.
Martin Mallard from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We have used off and on for the last 15 years a little card that's given to all our dancers and is given to some of our shopping centers as well. We print them by the thousands, and all it says, join us for a night of fun. And the people involved will sign these cards with a phone number. The last time we used it, we got 17 squares. It's free. It just says join us for a night of free night of fun. They come out, and it works. It's worked very well for us. This last year, we got 12 squares.
You can call it misleading, but it works.
I have Betsy Gotta again. I have something along the same lines that we used at our club at Rutgers University in New Jersey. We were looking to attract more males because we had lots of females. That seems to be a common problem. And the president of the club inserted an advertisement in the personal comments in the Rutgers newspaper, which said, "Attention men, want to learn 68 moves on 4 girls at a time in 13 weeks? Come for free introductory lesson."
Love it. Got my next ad for my next class right there. Do we have any negative comment out there? We're getting a lot of good positive comment, which is great, but I'm sure some people out here have done things that have not worked out too well, and we'd like to hear about them so that other people will not make the same mistakes.
I don't know whether every newspaper will accept that.
I don't know. Have you read the papers lately? Accept anything that takes money.
College paper, it hardly stood out.
Right. Another thing I was thinking about, we always advertise the CallerLab states about 42 weeks to become a square dancer. How about if we change that into hours? Maybe it doesn't sound so bad. We only want 105 hours of your time. Maybe that sounds worse. I don't know. But sometimes at 42 weeks, that's a year. Boy, I don't know if I want to take a year. And so these are things that are coming up. Another thing is, what is fun? What is fun? Fun is something different to everybody. We always say, come on out and have a lot of fun. Be a square dancer. What are we talking about? I don't know. You got some more questions, Jim?
It goes to show that the basically thing of advertising is true, but it's what happens when we get our people into the class. Like we've had people saying, okay, now I went to in a state to do a dance. And one guy says, this is about the month of May, so okay, now our brand new class people are out, and you can call up to the full +2. And I said, class people, and they are +2 dancers? He says, yes, we've got, we started off in September, so roughly about 17 squares, but now our class, we're only down to about 6 squares. And I said, well, doesn't that mean anything to you? He says, yes, that we go through all the list, and if you can't hack it, there's the door, out you go. And I thought, that is bad, because here we are, all CALLERLAB members, and if this call is a CALLERLAB member, I don't know, but there are not following the list, and our dancers saying, jeepers, here we are, and when do we stop learning? And this is many, many questions we find. People who have dropped out is because we are too busy rushing. Now, there are people who want to go through basics, extended, mainstream, +1, they want to get higher. But I find in 1 year, we just cannot. We've been losing, I know other areas have been losing people like this. I don't think it's fair. That's not true advertising in basics. They want to keep going higher and higher. What is your comment? Do you find things like this happen in your areas too, about dance, about class people? They want to get the mainstream +1, +2? Yes. That's one of my main comments. It's what happens when we get them in the class. That's where we lose a lot of people.
Very good, Jim. Very true. One thing in our area, again, I publish a little magazine, and there's some freebies up here. Those that didn't get some, get one before you leave. No charge. You're burying me, Betsy. One thing I noticed that every time I make up the club listings, we publish all the club listings for our clubs in our area, which are about 53 in our little Santa Clara Valley. Just about every club is called a +2 club. But if you went out there and called a +2 dance to them, you'd lose about 3/4 of them because they're not +2 dancers. But everybody wants to be the top. They want to be the top of the heap. And one thing I've been fighting in our area, not fighting, but making statements about is what happens to all these people when we graduate? They graduate as a mainstream dancer. What happens between mainstream and +2? The quarterly selections and the +1. We have no dancers for these people. We have no clubs they can join, maybe 1 out of 53 or 2 out of 53. Where are these people supposed to go? What's supposed to happen to them? Never get any answers, but we still got the questions. Can we get some comments from the floor? Would you come up here, young lady, please? And you, sir, next. And so we can get you on the tape. No, we don't want to embarrass you, but we do have to have you on the tape so the other people that are not attending the meeting can find out what we're thinking. State your name, please.
I'm Mark McPherson from Vancouver, Canada. Ken just said we all want to be at the top of the heap. He's right, we do. But in Vancouver, we've been really thinking about this. I notice every one of us here today that has been talking has said it doesn't cost much money. In other words, it's cheap. And that's what we are. We're cheap. It is time that we think other ways. For example, in the Vancouver area, we have at least a dozen new badminton halls. They're costing $500,000. We have people that are paying $2,000 memberships, and there's a waiting list. We're charging $20 for 20 lessons, and we haven't got a waiting list. We're begging people. We're dumb. And it is time that we get a professional advertising program. I think one of the things that CALLERLAB might think about is to get somebody that is in that field, just like we had a music man who can teach us how to advertise properly, because we are not cheap. We're wonderful. And if people want something wonderful, they want to pay for it. We want to be the best, and you're not going to get the best by acting cheap. So let's think on a higher level. Thank you.
Very good. Wonderful. Now, there's a woman that's got a lot of thought behind what she's talking about. Yes, sir. May we have you? You had your hand up? Would you come up, please?
I want to ask a question.
Oh, okay. A question.
The question is, you advertise a +2 dance, but you go there and it is a +2 dance. Maybe they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves. How can you advertise that as a +2 dance?
Good question. The question was, how do you advertise at a +2 dance when you get there and they only call 1 or 2 +2 figures, or part of a +2 program? Yes?
Or what rules say? Here's what they're called 1
Okay. The lady stated it out loud and clear, and I hope you got it on the tape. Any other questions or thoughts out there from our great audience? Massive people out there. Would you come up here, please? Come on. Don't be shy. All right. Well, come on up here and tell the people about it so they can get it on the tape and they can all hear.
George Edwards from Michigan, and I really feel strongly about the advertising and sticking to the advertisement in the dance level that we're going to do. If it's mainstream, let's do mainstream, and if we're going to do a plus one movement, workshop it. If everybody can do it, walk through it only one time and it's workshopped. But stick to the advertise and make it pure as possible. And I firmly believe if it's advertise plus two, you could expect to do all of the plus two movements and all of the plus one movements at that dance.
Very good. I think that's what it states in our CALLERLAB bylaws, or rules, or whatever they are, that is what we're supposed to do. Any more comments from Betsy down here?
To get back to the being the top of the heap and levels, I am currently trying to figure out how to write a little piece for our local magazine about levels and what I call level snobs. A level snob is a person who is better because they dance a certain level, be it mainstream better than the beginners, or plus be better than mainstream. And it's the same attitude. No offense to anybody who drives a Cadillac, but it's the same attitude of someone who drives a Cadillac being better than me in my citation. They aren't. What we have got to start selling to the dancers, I think, which would help solve the problem of where do they go and advertising levels, is the fact that dancing a certain level or being able to dance a certain level doesn't make you a better person or a better dancer than someone who wants to dance mainstream. We've got to start selling mainstream as a positive thing. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I am hoping that by writing about level snobs and saying that they're putting pressure on you and investing, the reason they're saying that they're better is because they've got personal worth invested in what their level is, and they're not secure people. We who are not level snobs, quote, are secure people, and we know that we're worthwhile, so that we don't have to push ourselves as being important because we dance plus two. And if you can sell an idea like that to your clubs, maybe some of them won't push their dancers by advertising a dance or their club at a level at which the most of the dancers in the club cannot dance.
Very good. We have any more thoughts out there? Somebody must have something they're thinking about. Anybody have any good stories? Anybody got anything? If not, we'll have to run our meeting off here. But I think there must be somebody out there with some thoughts. Nora Digmatich, do you have something on your mind? Well, come on up here and talk. Pardon? Oh, okay. She's thinking. While she's thinking, does anybody else have any more? Yes, sir. Come on back up.
George Edwards again. I'd like to comment a little bit on the problem of the dancers that quit halfway through the lessons, that are, because they're being pressured too much, are trying to give too much to them in too short a period of time, like you were talking about. I think our best advertisement is word of mouth. And the word of mouth advertisement from those that quit is not good advertisement.
Very true. More truth. Yes, sir. Would you come up here, please? And you will follow him, please. Thank you. Now we're getting into the act here. Good. Participation.
Yeah, Norm Yoder from Hillsboro, Oregon, which is, might say, Portland. I've got a question. I think all of us in our classes, you've always, or at least when I look at my class, I've kind of got three groups of people out there. You've got those that just snap, bat, bam, pick up everything. Then you've got the main body of them that they might have a problem with this or with that, but on the whole, they're picking up everything well, and the class is moving nicely. But then you've almost invariably got one or two couples that once you hit about swing through, from then on, it's really a struggle for them. I guess my question is, because I know we've talked about it in our own Callers Association, what can you do for these people? Or what do you do with them? Do you go ahead and let them struggle? Is there some way of giving them a little extra help? I mean, we do have at our lessons, I have club couples out, as, quote, angels. This is going on tape, so I don't know if I want to say this or not, but the dancers won't be too apt to listen to this. It'll be other callers. But sometimes the club couples that come out as angels, it's a good set of second or third or fourth sometimes lessons for them. So that doesn't always help, to get, unless you're selective, and which is kind of hard to do from a stage sometime, to get the right couples in with a couple that's having problems. But anyway, I was just wondering what some other of you might do in this situation where you've got some people that are really having a problem.
Okay. I think it's important to try and work with them because, again, if they drop out, they're going to be negative advertising. Since I started teaching with the singles group, I was used to splitting people up, and if a couple was having trouble, I would just send them different ways to dance with different partners. And I have tried this out with my groups that are all married couples. And I can kid them about it and say, twice a night or once a night, we're going to have you dance with somebody other than your spouse. Reason being that a lot of times if you get it and your partner is not getting it, you've got a lot of, again, personal worth or something invested in the fact that you don't want your partner or your husband or wife to think you're dumb. And so things get tense because they're telling you what to do and you're saying, I'm not wrong. And so in order to prevent this from ruining anybody's marriage, we'll have everybody dance with a different partner twice a night. And it has gone over well, and you can discreetly then mix those dancers into squares, not even necessarily with angels, but just with some of the stronger dancers. Get them a stronger class member as a partner, and get them away from each other so they're not entangled with who's blaming who as to who made the mistake.
We have the same problem with some of our people. Some are a little slower than others. We make the dancers feel that not to be afraid of the caller. During the break time when they are having trouble, we tell them, please come up and see us. That's why we are there for us to help them. And we, like Betsy said, they can't get it. They'll get frustrated and they'll leave and whatever. And we hate to see this out. In Hamilton, we have a Steel City town and a lot of shift work. People saying, oh, gee, well, when you're even learning class, when we advertise our class, one guy will say, well, I love to go square dancing, but I am on shift work and there's no way we can do it. And then we say, we've got you. Because we have a certain system worked out that has been very successful for us. We try having a little workshop, say 15 minutes before the dance. And so if you missed your shift work from the week before, or even sickness, that please come on out the 15 minutes before the regular dance, and we workshop the calls that they have missed. And this way it has helped save the club. We have lost hardly anybody at all from this. The only thing we've lost people is either sickness or, family problems or whatever. But for helping people, I'm all for it all the way. And we advertise it right from the first night of square dance saying, please don't be afraid of the caller. Come on up. We'd be glad to give you some help.
Very good. I have this young lady here that had a question or a statement. It's for him or for me? Oh.
I'm Claudia Amsbury from Spokane, Washington. I think I have to share with you something that worked out very successfully in our area. We have a super cooperative callers group and dancers organization, and each August we put together a schedule of classes. It's a four-sided thing that has Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning for kids, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and we have our promotion at the fair booth. We have in the fall, we have two what we call buddy dances. The last 2-3 years, they've been 70-80 squares. It's all callers all clubs, all going together. And of course, people find nowadays when there's gas problems and traveling is so expensive, to go where it's convenient. We like to say we train people to dance. They can go wherever they want to whatever club and join, but we want to teach them to square dance. Each month we have, starting in November, we have a party dance with a level agreed upon with the CALLERLAB list, and we call to that level. The next month we have decided on another one. We had 65 squares at our last party dance, which was, well, our next one is Friday night, but at the March one, we're keeping these people interested, and they have a ball because they're using. We advertise that you can be using and having fun within 6 weeks of the time you start lessons. And it works very successfully for our area. I know that not all areas have a cooperative group, and that callers and classes interchange, but it works good in our area, and it gets people out. They hear other voices, they hear other callers. They're very comfortable with other callers as well as their own caller. We have one large hall, we have another not quite so large, but we have an area where we can dance all together and do this, and it is a very cooperative thing as well as a very beneficial thing. It's a one-to-one thing. We find these buddy dances that are so large. A square dancer brings by the hand another couple. We have done newspaper advertising. We have done other things. We still find it's a one-to-one thing.
In the back of the hall, we have a gentleman. Would you come up, sir, and state your name and tell us your words of wisdom?
No words of wisdom. I'm Mike Crawford from the Seattle area, and something that has worked very well for me in a lesson situation, because as we're stating here, we advertise it to be fun, and it needs to be fun. The club that I call for decided that lessons running in the spring would be workable, and I was willing to go along with that. I recognize some problems in the summer. Everybody has vacation. The Northwest is a very recreation-oriented area, and the clubs, in fact, generally don't dance. There are exceptions, but a lot of the clubs don't dance in the summer. But we sat down and looked at the possibility of dancing through the summer, devoting the entire club activity during the summer to the class, or to involving the class. So we have 3 dances in the summer, 1 a month, which are set at the level the class currently is. We have a club camp out. We have several, like you get into the fall demonstration period when you're doing demonstrations to advertise square dancing for the fall lessons. At that point, the class is at a level they can go out to the local shopping malls. And through this involvement, the dropout rate has been reduced considerably. I've had very good results with retaining the people who start. Another thing that I did, because I currently am only calling for 1 club and have a little spare time, I set up a workshop on another night of the week other than the primary lesson night. So if someone, for an example, went on vacation with their family and missed a lesson, they could come out to that workshop on another night. An interesting thing happened there. The people who needed help in the lessons also come out. Most of them recognize they're having difficulty, and so they'll come out to this workshop. And because of that, by the time we graduated the class, we had virtually everyone dancing at the same level and were very comfortable. So I found that to be a very workable system.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Any more questions or statements out there? In the back of the hall, we had this young lady come up. While she's working her way up here, I do some senior citizens classes, and we're starting a program. What I always tell them, which holds true, that you can go away for 6 months and come back and you're going to be able to dance in this group. And they can, because we don't go very far very fast.
I, too, have a question. How do you advertise the lesson nights that go 2 years? Most of us, I think, teach the mainstream in a 1 year, in 1 season, but there are some areas that go to a 2 year. And I'm wondering how you advertise this so that the new dancers don't have the reaction, oh goodness, we have to go to lessons for 2 years to learn how to dance. How do you positively keep them for 2 years in class?
Very good. I think we have a gentleman back there that has an answer. If you come up here and state your name, please, first, and then give us your answer to that pertinent question.
My name is Don Hanhurst from Fort Myers, Florida. And my answer to that is one we just started down in Florida. Don't call them classes. There's no such thing as beginners classes as far as I'm concerned. There are new dancers dancing, and that's all there is to it. If you just tell them that we have a group who's going to be dancing weekly, matter of fact, I refuse to tell anybody when they're going to graduate, if in fact they're going to graduate. I tell them it's going to take us as long until we become good dancers, and we're just going to have a good time. Now, of course, I'm not sponsored by a club, and so you have a different situation there. But I would say avoid the word classes. Try and avoid calling them beginners. New dancers is the best term that I find, better than beginners. Beginners is a terrible word. Nobody wants to ever begin anything. Just call them new dancers. And don't call them classes. Call them learning sessions, dancing clubs or learning clubs. A learning club is what we're using right now, the term we're using in Fort Myers for a group. And I find the term learning club with new dancers in a learning club nicer than beginners in a new class.
You got anything on that?
Someone liked.
Anything. Whatever you want to talk about, dear. Come on back up. Oh, she's got to think about it. How about out there in the audience? Do we have some more? Yes. Would you come up here, please?
I'm Dee Carter from Cedar City, Utah, and I would just like to say that I think advertising by word of mouth is one of the best ways in order to bring people in. I really do, and because you can tell them everything that you have enjoyed about square dancing. And I would like to just say that one of the most important things I have learned and got out of square dancing is meeting so many wonderful people. I love them to death.
Very good.
In addition to that, going along with word of mouth, all of the little decals, flags, bumper stickers that we have on our car, or whatever, are getting the word across. At least one person filled out the form. It says, question number 1, how did you hear about square dancing? The answer was, ask a friend what the flag on her aerial meant. So that all of these things get it across. The fact that we are proud enough to go out and dance in the mall. Even if we don't get anybody specifically from that demonstration, maybe we'll get somebody later. The club that I call for at Rutgers University, in addition to having that risque advertisement in the university paper, has started in the last 3 years demonstrations in the university dining halls during the dinner hour. Luckily, we happen to have one of the directors of the dining halls dances with another club in our area, and they are very cooperative about setting up a space and letting us dance for an hour. And we can even eat in the dining hall afterwards. But the fact is that these people who thought, university people or whatever, thought square dancing was kind of yucky or whatever because they got it in school and they had to do it and it wasn't presented as fun, they see their peers having a good time. And then they're invited to come to a dance. And the fact that you have enough pride in what you're doing, enough enjoyment to hold yourself up for possible ridicule by going out and presenting something that everybody doesn't accept, is a positive statement about how you feel about your activity. And if we put on these bumper stickers or decals or magnetic stickers and go out and dance, I think that's one of our best advertising, and then you can get them for the word of mouth.
Very good. One thing that we also do down in our area, Norma and her husband Mike, they just finally got out of it and passed it on to another group. But each year our Callers Association would make a list of all the beginner classes in our Santa Clara Valley area when they were going to start. And we'd have these published up and passed out to all the callers. There's quite a few of us. We have a lot of resort areas in our, 3 big ones in our area. One called Roaring Camp, and one is Bucknorad Stables, and another is called Coyote Ranch, where we have square dancing on the weekends 2 or 3 times during the weekend period, each one of those spots, and they're all what we call one-night stands. They hire us to go out there and call. And we will usually have these flyers out there on the stage and say, hey, if you guys are having a good time and really want to learn how to be a good square dancer, come on up and take one of these home with you. And you'd be surprised the number of people that pick them up and take them home. Now, whether they do any good, we've never followed through on that, but at least we're getting the word out, and people that have had a good time, got a good taste of square dancing, know places they can, phone numbers they can call, or places they can go and learn how to be a square dancer. And that does work in our area, and we hope to make it work better this coming year. Any more out there on the floor that would like to speak? Would you come up here, sir? Thank you.
I'm Edwin Lang from Austin, Texas. I've been listening to Advertise, but it takes money to advertise. We found that out because the newspaper want money. So what we did this year, I was elected president of the Call Association in my area in December. And in January, I told my association we're going to have a dance for advertisement. Of course, they didn't like it, but we had it anyhow. And we wound up with 20 squares. So we got some good money, and now we're going to have another one in August. All the callers who then want to call, they can come and call the tip. And we have 22 callers in our area there. And it really worked out real good for the money. We couldn't get it from the association because they said we're advertisement, but where were they advertising? In the newsletters and everything else. And the only one place newsletters went to was back to the dancers. Of course, they were already dancing. So that's what we're going to try. Right now, we've got around $700 in our kitty. And I have two good gentlemen. I think you may have heard of Chuck Bryan. He's on the committee for advertising. And he's a national caller, and he's been caller for 20-some-odd years, and he's real good, and I hope he comes up with something. And I wish I could report anything, but I don't have on what's going on.
Do you have any ideas how you're going to use the money yet?
No, he's supposed to look into that. So I hope it'll work.
In the back, you want to come up? Good.
What I'm wondering about is, did we talk about, this to me borders more on promotion, truth and advertising, how to promote. Did we talk about what you do when your dancer asked you, I went to a dance, it was advertised as a +2 dance, and the guy called A1, what do I do? What was the body? I missed it if we talked about.
All right. The question was, what do we do about dances that are advertised +2 and they start using A1 figures? And I think we had an answer, but let Betsy get up here. And Jim? One of you? Oh, come on, guys. All right. Anyway, what I think is in the CALLERLAB bit is if it is going to be used there, is when you say you're going to have a +2 dance, doesn't mean you cannot call an A1 figure. If you walk it, if you workshop it or walk it through, you can call any darn thing you want. They're not saying you're limited. They're just saying if you're going to call right off the top of the head, you got to use what you advertised. If you're going to call a +2 dance, you can call on a +2 figure you want to call. It's in that category or anything below it. If you do anything above it or it's not on the list, you are supposed to walk it. That's the way I understood it. Maybe I'm wrong. Betsy?
All right. We were talking about this at lunch, and we were talking about how the dancers these days seem to be a little bit more aware of their rights as to advertised levels. And what... You remember now? Okay, good. He's going to tell this story for me. But what I have told my dancers is if you go to a level or dancing that's above the advertised level and they're dumping on you and you can't do it, not workshopping or walking it through, ask for your money back. Tell them that you cannot dance. This dance is not the advertised level, and since you have to leave, you want your money back.
Now I know it's okay. What's happening too with some of the festivals that we're working at, they'll have a committee meeting before the festival starts with all the callers. They'll say, okay, now gentlemen, you are hired to do your best at calling and levels. Now the only thing is that some of the committee will be wandering around the rooms. For an example, if it's a +1 room, that you call nothing but +2. If that hour is strictly a +1 hour dance, not a teach. And if you slip and go off that list, just call right straight without the list, your paycheck is deducted. And by golly, when that hits the pocketbook, and it has really happened. And one of the callers I was talking to, he was telling me he was calling at one of the Washington, D.C. state conventions. He had prime hour and one of the prime spots, and it was a +1 room, and there was wall-to-wall people. And he called something off the list, away he went, and that whole floor yelled and said, "No, you can't do that." Well, that poor caller, he just felt terrible. He apologized, said, "Yes, you are right. I went off the list." And it does happen. I don't know why these fellows are all CALLERLAB members. You know, I'm dedicated to CALLERLAB. I follow this no matter. We're having dancers in our area now who are some of the callers. They're +2 nights. And now they're starting to add in plus A1, A2. And the dancers, they do not want it. They want strictly, if they're going to a +2 dance, they want strictly +2 or +2 APD, not to learn the new some A1, A2. Now, while I'm up here, a little thing I like to tell about in advertising in square dancing, one of the callers in the area he tried out, he had 2 squares go to one of the malls, and he had 1 square fully dressed in the square dance costume, 1 square without the square dance costume. And he showed that people that you don't have to go, like I say earlier, about spend all this money in the costume area. We did a dance demonstration about in July or August in one of the malls, and we were short 1 gentleman and to fill in for the square. And one of our dancers, he was just walking out shopping at the mall, and we had people watching. And this one guy, we said, "Gee, we need 1 more dancer." And all this guy said, "Hey, I'll help you." And he dropped his parcel, came in, jumped into a square, and started dancing. Now, again, the basics are very, very limited. Some of the callers I talk to when they do demonstrations, they're doing spin chain the gears, motivates and all that. It just frightens people away. Well, we just keep it as simple as possible. And when we use singing calls at the mall, we use the modern music they're familiar with that from the radio and television. This seems to work out very well. But with this gentleman jumping into a square and started dancing, one guy from the outside said, "Boy, if he can do it, so can I. Where do I sign up?" And this type of advertising, it did help. That's one of our ideas that we thought might help out for you.
Very good. Very good. It brings up one point that if the people out there in the audience, if you're putting on an exhibition, can relate to what you're doing, you got a potential dancer out there. That's why we always use a Virginia reel, because everybody's seen a Virginia reel and anybody can do it. And we do it, and with some fun things in it. And the people out there will relate to that, and they think, "Hey, that's not so hard. I can do that square dancing." And they might come up and take a flyer and find out where the classes are going to be held. Any more questions? Or yes, sir, would you come up here, please?
I'm Jim Masco, a dancer here representing Legacy, and I'm very impressed to see that callers are discussing problems that we felt as dancers callers always ignored. We always felt that advertising was the dancer's responsibility, so I'm always very, very happy to see that the callers feel that a responsibility there too, and we're looking for, I mean, if I hadn't been here at this CALLERLAB, I wouldn't be aware that you, in fact, are taking an interest, and I hope that there is some means where the things that do go on here at CALLERLAB do get back to the dancer better than they have in previous years, and I'm going to do my best to get it back to Legacy and hopefully get it back to the dancer in that point, but hopefully CALLERLAB can do the same. And the point made about professionalism and to make square dancing brought to the public is something that perhaps CALLERLAB is maybe the best source for it. You have people like Bob Osgood, Stan Burdick, people who deal in this realm of the activity all of the time for their livelihood. So maybe it's a very good point that could be funneled in their direction. Maybe they could help square dancers pick up the ball and make a very professional attitude toward advertising our activity to make it grow.
Thank you. I had a thought. Wouldn't it be fantastic if you turned on the TV and all of a sudden there was about a 2-minute commercial on square dancing in color with beautiful people dancing beautiful figures to a guy that you can understand? Wouldn't it be fantastic? It could be done if we'd all just put our heads to it, and because we got the money. The money's out there, and all we got to do is ask for it. I think that's our biggest problem, like that lady stated before, where square dancing is a cheap activity, and it is. If you don't charge anything, it's real cheap. And that seems to be one of our big problems. It does take money to operate, and we're afraid to ask for the money. But you get it. All you can do is ask for it, and the people give you all you need for a good activity that they believe in. Any more questions out there? Norma, and then we'll have you.
Norma Degmentich from California. Something we haven't touched on that I'd like some answers to is the inexperienced caller who starts a beginner class. And we're starting a program for newer callers in our area. And I'd like to know what you do to help these newer callers who sometimes this is where they start. And perhaps in some cases, unfortunately, we do lose dancers because they are inexperienced. So I'd like maybe some feedback on that.
Anybody have any comment on Norma's question there?
I'll start. Betsy Gotta again. I have been working with a couple of friends who wanted to become callers, and one of them took on a set of lessons this year that I couldn't do. And I also, because I don't have that night free, cannot go to the lessons. What I have done is, in order to try and work with them, is try to find out from him how he thought it was going, from the club president, whether or not they could give me any feedback that I could discreetly pass to him quietly, criticisms. I said I wanted, at some point, not every single session, but I wanted him to tape the sessions and give them back to me so that I could critique. I think that any Callers Association could work with anybody who's sponsoring a new class if that person is willing to work with the Callers Association. And there's your problem.
Somebody had something to say out there? Somebody should. Oh, yes. Would you come up here, please? Did that answer part of your question there, Norma? Good. We're accomplishing things, folks. Hang in there.
I heard too much at home. They only give me 5 minutes. Just to this last question, one of the things we do at home, wherever we can, when we have 2 halls available side by side, the mother club has a beginner class on the same night next door. And usually it is a new caller. And this way you work together. Also, the new dancers get to know what the club is like and that kind of thing. They have their coffee together. We found that an excellent way of promoting square dancing, of keeping them in the club and getting to know what the clubs are like. What I really wanted to say is the word of mouth idea. What happens when we've danced for 25 years and our only friends are square dancers? We have nobody to tell about it, word of mouth. So we have to go out another way. And this young lady here said about watching your peers. We had some really nice experiences over the last few years that we found was very good. And the thing is, you mustn't mustn't worry whether that particular dancer that you speak to is going to be in your own class. We must be interested in the fact that they are interested in learning how to square dance, whether it's in your club or next door or down in the next town or even in another province. Sometimes you have a new member in your club that really likes to square dance, and first thing you know, they're badgering their neighbors every day, and they just can't get their neighbors to come to square dance. And about a year later, they come to you and say, you know, I asked Jack every week last year to come and square dance, and he just wouldn't come. And you know, that beggar is out there dancing with Joe, and I've asked him every week. Maybe that's the problem. He just badgered him too much. So caution your dancers not to badger anybody, but show. And as this young lady said, show when you watch your peers. This is important. Last year we attended a picnic, and we had to take a ferry. And on the way back, of course, we had missed the ferry, and there were a number of us in our cars, and some of them had some tapes. So while we were waiting for the ferry, we got up some squares and did some square dancing right on the ferry landing. And now this is about 50 miles away from home, but I understand that they picked up several members in that town because they had seen the square dancing and saw how much we enjoyed it. Another experience was we attended a jamboree in the Yukon. And after the jamboree, we were quite a number of us down at the airport. And the next thing, the young caller had a set there, and we were all square dancing in the airport. It didn't do us any good in Vancouver, but Whitehorse really got some new members because they saw how people were enjoying the square dancing just anywhere. And some of those people didn't live in Whitehorse. They lived all over Canada. So they went home and thought, well, gee, maybe this is a good idea. My husband and I are very lucky. We do square dance tours all over the world. And several years ago we were in Fiji, and we arrived with 5 days of solid rain. Well, we didn't know just what we were going to do, so the second morning I contacted the manager of the hotel, and I said, if you have a record player, I think maybe we can do something with our group, because we had 60 people and they wanted to do something. And so next thing, there was a knock at the door and said, here's your record player. So we went into the bar and we had a little workshop. Of course, the rest of the people in the hotel were quite interested. So for 5 days, we had one-night stands and workshops. And at the end of the 5 days, which was our last night, they had sort of a turnabout. In the evening, after the dinner, the hotel management arranged to have a party for us. And anybody that was not a square dancer would have to get up and do something to entertain us. And we had some people from New Zealand who got up and they had a long poem about what a wonderful time we square dancers had given him. And when we arrived in New Zealand, here they were at the airport waiting for us, and I understand they're active square dancers now. And in the same way, other people, through us, went square dancing, not because we particularly said, come to our club, but we just let the public know. So it doesn't matter where you are. Talk about square dancing, because somewhere, somebody, sometime is going to be a square dancer.
Lots of meat in that talk there. Jim, how about you? Any more? We've run out of time. Oh, yes. Would you come up here? All right. Would you come on up here and state it? It's a lot easier than reading it.
D. Carter again. I would like to ask the question. I go to Bryce Canyon and call square dancing just a one-night stand once a week all summer long. And I have had several people say, I have never heard of square dancing. This has been a whole lot of fun. Can I do this at home? I tell them, I'm sure they can. Do I tell them to check with the Chamber of Commerce? Who do I actually tell them to check with when they get back home?
One of the things I do is carry the directory from the issue of Sets in Order. I'm sorry, I can never remember the new name. I carry the directory from the issue of Sets in Order, either Xeroxed or the copy, with me in the bag that contains all my power cords. And that gives me contacts all over the world from the latest issue, and then I can pass on a name or two to anybody. In the local area, we have a magazine also called The Grand Square, which again publishes directories of classes and clubs. And I attempt to keep the current one of that always with me so that I can pass out area information for the area dancers. Yeah, well, that's why you want the August issue of Sets in Order, or the National Square Dance Directory. All of those things would be what you would need to carry with you to give people contacts. I've also, for my people in lessons when they were going on vacation, given them a couple names and told them, call up here, see if they're the same place we are, and go to a lesson down there. Yeah, Chamber of Commerce's comment from the audience. Most Chamber of Commerce's list at least one square dance contact.
One thing that we always overlook, I think, but we use it quite often, is this yellow pages in the square dance. Under square dance callers in the yellow pages. In our area, we have maybe 10 of us listed. Well, I'm listed under a magazine we have, and so I usually get most of the calls because it says Square Dance News, and everybody figures, well, that's, they know we got all the news about square dance, and we'll call them. Christmas Day, I get a call about, where can I learn how to square dance? Whole families are having dinner. But that's part of the game. But if you look in your yellow pages, if you're in a fairly large city, will have listings under square dance callers, and you may list under there, and you do not have to have a business phone to list under there, was my understanding. So I just tell if I'm out of the area and people want to know, I say, look in your yellow pages, and you usually find something. Back there, sir, would you come up here and state your name?
My name's Chuck Waldy from the National Square Dance Directory in Jackson, Mississippi. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the book, but as far as locating a dance, there are quite a few ways in which dances can be listed, and I think we've seen just about every place and every way that there is to list a dance. And we've tried to compile a good listing. In some areas you can find it with the Chamber of Commerce, in some areas in a telephone book. And, one thing that I would like to add with the idea of professional approach to advertising is that you can also get the word across through press releases. And this is a kind of a form of advertising that you don't have to pay for, but people are looking for things to run in newspapers that very often they'd much rather run something about a local activity rather than having to fill in something that's extraneous to fill out their newspaper. If you send them something local, they will run it. I don't have too much more to add. I think maybe one problem also with new dancers is not to get them into +2 dances really too quickly. This can be really discouraging when you bring in a national caller and they're calling +2, and the people don't really know the figures off the +2 list. That's something else you have to kind of watch out for.
I know in the province of Ontario, when people are on the highways, like a lot of the information centers, we send all of the information to them about where all the clubs are in Ontario. So if people are traveling through, they go into an information center where square dancers, where can we square dance, and they'll look out and bingo, there it is right there for them. If that helps.
All righty. Would you like to come back up here again, please? All right. Well, we would like to get on tape. It's the only reason we ask you to come up. I know you don't like it, but look at the exercise you're getting. Boy, you're burning up those calories like crazy. Better than square dancing.
In Vancouver, for the last 8 years, we've had something called the Red Phone. I think everybody in British Columbia knows where the Red Phone is. It is listed in our Vancouver directory as square dance information. Any square dancer can have as many of these business cards in their pocket as they wish, and it's called the Red Phone card. It's square dance information, and it gives a telephone number. We take them all over Canada or wherever we are, and I haven't got one in my purse. But we have found this really good, and the associations pay the bill. It costs about $18 a month. I think it's one of the best ways of advertising we've ever had, because we do get a lot of calls from non-square dancers as well as square dancers.
How do you answer the phone? Is it taped or?
Yes, for 7 years I happened to answer the phone, and we did have a tape, and the tape starts out with something about, hello, this is your Square Dance Information Center. If you want to know anything about square dancing, we have 3 telephone numbers that you can phone, and we give those 3 numbers. And then also, if you're already square dancing and are looking for a club or a dance, then we list the popular dances for that week. And every Monday morning, I make a new tape. Recently, we had a square dancer who volunteered, who had just recently retired, to do this. He's much better than I ever was and does a much better job.
Well, folks, we're kind of running out of time. We got a few more minutes, though. Has anybody else got any more words of wisdom for our group here? Yes, sir. Would you come back up?
I'm Ed Lang again. The lady that asked about the new callers, teaching class and everything. This year we started the new callers, what we call new callers, anybody with less than 2 years experience. They go to 3 clubs, callers, and what they have to do, the club caller will tell them what to call, and they have to call that in their pattern. And in all the area now, if a caller comes to my area or my club, he has to call a patter, or else he don't call. Even if he's a guest caller, if he can't call a patter, he don't call. We say we're sorry, because we think a caller should call a patter call, and a singing call too. Anyhow, for 3 months we do that, and then these 3 callers will give them a checkup, say how good they are, what they're doing wrong, and everything like that. So it has really helped us. We're getting good callers out down there. So we're hoping it'll work better.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, guys, according to my clock, it's getting awfully close, and I think we probably run out about tape by now anyway. We do appreciate everybody for coming and helping out. We cut them up with a lot of good ideas, and I think we get Big John K to edit this tape, and he can go through here and pick out all the good ones and use them. There's many things here I think Caller Lab can do for advertising, and let's hope that it does happen. Thank you again. Thank you, Stan. Very good. Congratulations. You've done a fantastic job. You did too, Jen. Thank you kindly. Nice working. Very good. I would love to see them do this with all over. Yeah. Super idea. If you'd like a free book, take one there, guys.
Oh, yeah. Right. Sure, you can have that. That's a good thought. Did you hear that? Right.